Hey everyone. Before we get down to a brand new fresh batch of true life horror stories, I just wanted to give a quick update on this channel. A few of you have touched base just to check that I'm still making content since I haven't uploaded anything in like 2 months. Sorry about that. If you've already heard this, or if you just want to get straight to the stories, the timestamps are in the description. So I'm definitely still keen to keep creating content. This channel is definitely not dead. I really enjoy doing narrations and interacting with you guys. It's such an honor to be given permission to narrate and share your personal experiences, and I really want to do you justice. Making really good videos with proper editing and effects takes a lot longer than I expected it would when I first started doing this. Also, my life is pretty hectic. I work a really demanding job with Child Protective Services. I love it, but it's really long hours and it's just really draining. I'm also engaged to someone who is massively out of my league, and I had a huge surgery in June and I'll need more in January, which is always a lot of fun. I'm hoping to get into a position soon where I upload regularly. That's like the dream. In addition to all of the scary true life stories from Let's Not Meet that you guys have given me permission to narrate, I've also had requests come through to read people's creepypastas. I'm really excited to expand my focus to that kind of thing too. If you have a creepypasta that you'd like me to share, please do let me know. The email and everything is in the description. I'm also looking at doing some mini docos on famous serial killers. I'm from New Zealand, if you couldn't tell, and there's a lot of weird shit that goes down here. So, with all that in mind, if you haven't already, I'd recommend subscribing, so that until I get to the point where I'm uploading all the time, you don't miss it when I rise back from the dead, or maybe out of the mausoleum. Get it? Because the channel is Mr. Yeah, okay, I'll shut up and give you what you're here for. Peace. Okay, so I haven't really thought about this in a long time. I think that I tried to downplay what could have happened because it was easier than accepting the scary reality. I was about 13, so this was a good 5 years ago or so. I was at my friend's house where I don't think I was supposed to be, with strict parents, and we were hanging out. My friend is 2 years younger than me, but we grew up together. So for the most part, everything was normal until there was a knock on the door. Now, we were at her house alone and were definitely not expecting anyone. I am a pretty fearless person for the most part who has no regard for her own safety, but a strong regard for the safety of others. I walked to the door and peered through the curtains. Past the door, there was a man in his late 30s who was standing with a clipboard. His car wasn't in the driveway, but on the street by the house. No, scratch that. I know he saw me because he began to speak.
I'm here to fix your cable.
My friend, sitting on the stairs, has had people come to do things like that before, but her parents have always told her when and if it was happening. Her face looked confused and utterly terrified. She isn't the bravest, but I did have a bad gut feeling. So by now I think, okay, don't open the door and he will leave. A rational idea, right? Well, at this point the man kept knocking. The knocking turned to banging. He must have been kicking the door too because the sound was so loud and violent that I thought the door was going to break. My friend lived on such a busy street, so I'm incredibly unsure how none of her neighbours that knew she was home alone at that time heard any of the commotion. Of course we panicked, but I knew I had to take control of the situation. My friend was in no state to move, let alone take the lead. I was 13 though, so I was out of my mind horrified. Eventually I snuck around to the kitchen and grabbed a knife. I checked the back door and went to my friend who was sitting on the stairs. The stairs are between each door, but have walls that go down each side, so we were out of sight. When I got back to the stairs, the knocking stopped. My heartbeat seemed to have stopped too because it sounded like the world became empty. The front doorknob began to turn as he tried to open the door, which was followed by more silence. After maybe 15 seconds, I heard something that I was definitely not happy to hear.
I know you're in there.
Now you see, if I were an adult, there is no way that this man would say something like that to me, right? His tone was that of a crazed man, and it left me feeling as if every bone in my body suddenly turned to jello. Either way, we sat very still. A couple of minutes passed and we thought we were in the clear. That's when I heard gentle pulling, followed by loud banging on the backyard glass doors. At this point, I grab my friend and I bring her upstairs. I grab the phone and we go to her mum's room to get into the closet so we can hide. I call the police, feeling physically ill, and talk to the lady on the line. She questions us, and my friend has started crying. I answer her questions, and she tells me that someone's coming and I just have to wait on the line. I feel like puking, but I keep incredibly calm to ensure that my friend doesn't fall into a full-blown panic attack. She's known to get worked up easily, and I couldn't keep her calm and take care of the situation at the same time. Eventually the banging stops and I begin to breathe again. Can you still hear him? I answer the officer with a no, so she tells me that I should check to see if he's still there. She tells me to be quiet and careful. I slowly climb down the stairs and peek at the back door. No one is out there. I walk to the front and step into the room with a window and basically crawl to it. When I peek my head over, I see the man sitting on the stairs outside on his phone. This just sends me into a frenzy, so I respond in a panic that he is. She tells me to go back and hide, and the police are close. Eventually, after a long time, there's banging on the door again. This time it ends quickly. A nice lady officer calls to us from outside, saying we can come out. We go downstairs and see a male officer talking to the man while the woman comforts us. Apparently the man works for a cable company and was told to go around back if no one was home and let himself in. I think anyone can see the flaw in his alibi, but he had a clipboard that had God knows what on it, and the police checked it and let him go. The woman told us she believed us and not him, but there wasn't much else they can do. I hate to think about what could have happened had that man got inside. I chalked it down to a cable guy that's really passionate about his work, but now I have to accept that that is most likely not the case. I hate to think that people like him, who clearly have bad intentions, get away so easily. Maybe I could understand if we lived in a bad neighborhood, but where we lived had always been regarded as incredibly safe. I wish that no one ever has to feel as scared as I did with my small fist clenching such a big knife in such a horrible situation. I'm unsure if this even comes across as horrifying as it felt, but maybe the visual image of the man smiling at the back door that is burned into my mind is why it's still so frightening to think about. Either way, thanks for listening and stay safe. This happened a few months ago in the dead, cold winter. I remember being home alone. My parents had gone out to the bar for their friend's birthday, and my little sister was at my cousin's house for a sleepover. My dog and I were the only two in the house, which is sometimes a bit scary for me when it's late at night. I don't really like being by myself, mostly because I would have no way to defend myself if something happened. I'm a 15-year-old, 5'1" girl. I can't really cause much damage. I'm also a very over-paranoid person, which sucks in these situations. Anyway, it was probably around 11 PM. I got up from watching something on my laptop to get a snack and feed my dog. When I came into the kitchen, my dog was staring at the back door and growling. Our back door is glass, so when I looked outside, all I saw was black. "Do you want to go outside?" I asked my dog, but she just continued to stare and growl at the door. I shrugged it off as her being in defensive mode for no reason, or she saw an animal. She's a little dog, but she thinks she's tough. I grabbed a snack out of the pantry and went over to my dog by the door. I picked her up to take her into my room when our motion-activated light turned on. I looked up, expecting to see an animal scurrying away, but oh no. I saw the figure of a man. He was wearing a black hoodie and I could barely make out his face. I knew he saw me. I stared at him before he ran off, hopping over my back fence and into my neighbour's yard, leaving tons of footprints in the snow. This freaked me out, and I began to cry. I called my mother, who was slightly drunk, and told her what I saw. She began to freak out over the phone, and I heard her talking to my dad. They told me they would be back, but to call the police in the meantime. I hung up and called 911 and explained what happened to the dispatcher. She calmed me down as I was having a pretty bad anxiety attack, telling me it would all be okay and the police would be there as quick as possible. I heard banging on the door after what felt like hours later, even though it was probably only 10 minutes max. The police began to talk to me. I was a tiny bit calmer than I was before. They explained to me that they would inspect the backyard and wait for my parents to get home. My parents finally got home. They weren't too far away, which was good. The police told them a patrol car would be staying around here. They explained to my parents that a house about a mile up had recently been robbed while the owners were gone. The footprints they found in the snow matched the ones that were at the other house. This freaked my parents and me out, of course, but the police assured us that they would be on lookout around the area. I never found out what happened to that man. I hope he got caught. So, to the man who I assume was attempting to rob my house late at night, let's not meet. This story happened back when I was 18 years old and lived on my own. I came from a small town of around 1,000 people and moved to a city about 2 hours away for college. I wasn't naive due to my upbringing, but still very new to the whole "my neighbours are on the other side of the wall, not 2 miles away" thing. I'm around 5'3", bigger girl, but at the time of this story I was more in shape and on the curvier side of being chubby, so I caught some unwanted attention. My apartment was on the bad side of town. The road it was next to had some motels that were notorious for housing dealers, streetwalkers, addicts, etc. It was next to a gas station that had to close at 9 PM because it got robbed so much. My building was set up so that every time someone walked by on the road, you could see into the first 2 apartments' windows if the blinds were open. I lived in apartment number 2. Even though I lived on my own, my cousin was in the military at the time and would have to come into the city one weekend out the month for drills and such. Him and his buddies decided that staying at my place during those weekends was cheaper than a hotel, and I was pretty laid back, so it became a normal thing for me to have 4 or 5 army dudes crashing on my living room floor. These guys staying with me is the thing that saved my ass one night. One night, all the guys had gone out to a party at a buddy's house except for my cousin. They left their cars at my complex, and my cuz was just going to pick them all up in the morning. He and I stayed up and talked pretty late into the night, and I headed upstairs for bed around 1. About an hour later, there was a knock at my front door. I thought maybe my cousin had locked himself out or something after he went out to get a tobacco fix, so I came downstairs, just to see him sitting upright on the couch staring at my front door. My front door is at the foot of my stairs, so I just about jumped out of my skin when another round of knocks landed on the door, louder this time. My cousin got up from the couch, and we just stood in the darkness, listening. Nothing happened for a minute, and I started to think it was just one of my neighbour's friends who had a few too many and mixed up our apartment numbers. That was when another small knock came, followed by,
Hey, my car broke down off the road. I was wondering if I can get some help.
It was a male's voice. He didn't sound creepy, but there was something about the situation that felt really off. Neither me nor my cousin moved from where we were standing in the living room. He whispered to not say anything, and I just nodded.
Come on, I just need a ride to my friend's house. It's not that far away.
We still said nothing.
Hello?
Another knock. At this point, my cousin had grabbed a baseball bat out of one of the other guy's duffel bags, something the guy kept on him since it was cheaper than a gun. I live in Canada, by the way. He walked over to the window and was about to peek out the blinds. I didn't have a peephole, when the guy outside knocked really hard.
Hey! I'm talking to you, girl!
My blood fucking went cold. How in the fuck did he know a girl lived here? He tried the doorknob, which was obviously locked, before slamming into the door again.
I just need some help with my car. Be a good girl and come help me out here.
My cousin stepped forward quickly to open the door, super mad at this point, and I stopped him. The guy slammed on the door one more time before I heard a scraping weird noise. I quickly realized it was the sound of him sliding down the door to sit in front of it. My cousin peeked out the blinds and just watches the guy sit there, head down in the darkness, not doing anything. I didn't want to go upstairs to get my phone because sometimes my stairs squeaked really loudly and I didn't want the guy to hear movement inside. My cousin's phone was dead as hell, so calling the cops was out until it charged enough to turn on. About 10 minutes later, the dude stood up and knocked again. This time, my cousin threw open the door quickly and yelled, "It's 2 AM! What do you want?" The guy froze. My cousin isn't a tall guy or anything, but for someone expecting a young woman, seeing an angry, muscular, shirtless dude in army pants holding a baseball bat was probably somewhat intimidating. They stared at each other for a second. I was out of eyesight from the door and could only see my cousin, not the man. They said nothing. My cousin broke the silence. "Well, what you need, man?" The dude answered in a quiet voice, muttering something about having the wrong apartment and that he was sorry to disturb him before turning away quickly and walking out of the complex's driveway, up the road and out of sight. I'm so glad my cousin stayed at my place instead of going out that night. I have no other explanation for how the guy knew a girl lived there besides that he had seen me walk in or out of my place before and he had all of this planned. We didn't call the cops because it was too dark to see the guy's face under the hat he was wearing and we couldn't really give a good description. I never got a knock at my door again for the next year or so that I lived there. So, dude that knocked on my door at 2 AM, I'm really glad you met my cousin and not me.